Hello there, I'm Fitz Rabin, and I am a Stam scribe and a soul scribe. A Stam scribe is the specialized craft of scribing the Torah scroll, which is used in the shul and the Jewish synagogue in prayer and service, as well as the phylacteries, the tefillin, and the mezuzah, which is on all Jewish homes on the doorpost. And together with that, I'm a soul scribe, where I journey with people. Sometimes it's coaching, sometimes it's teaching, sometimes it's just being with in a profound way, and support people in accessing a deeper self, their core, their creative spirit, their divine nature, so that they can live a life that they love and create both the experience as well as the results that they'd really love, rather than living reactively and in a constricted state of being. So in a conversation with a client last week, the subject of making it came up. And there's this interesting distinction that emerged in the conversation. We live in a Western culture and American value system where making it is a really high priority. People want to make it big. People want to make it successful. People want to just make it. And I think that there's two kinds of making it. And on their extremes, they're polar opposite. On one end, making it results in suicide. And on the other end, making it doesn't even matter anymore to you. And what do I mean by that? When a person's going about achieving a goal, creating a result, producing something in the world, a person wants to become a New York Times bestseller, a public speaker, a wealthy individual, an entrepreneur, whatever it is, there's a kind of obsession sometimes to make it in the service of feeling valid, in the service of feeling secure, in the service of feeling like an actual entity that exists. It's almost as if oftentimes people feel empty, hollow, as if they don't actually occupy and consume a real space in the world. Others do, but they don't. And so they want to kind of fill themselves up. You know, if you think about it, it's almost like a dummy, right? Like if there's a dummy standing there, the dummy is usually hollow, can easily be kicked over or knocked over. So the way to solve that problem is stuff it up. If you stuff it up with enough beans or water or rocks, if you stuff the dummy up, it will become heavier, it will become more dense and more difficult to push over. So in a similar way, this aspiration for making it is very often an attempt to stuff one's own hollowness up, fill oneself up with stuff, with recognition from the outside, with fame, with prestige, with wealth, with power, with women, whatever it is. And in the hopes that through stuffing oneself up with all of these things from the outside, one will become a solid being. One will achieve solidity and will occupy a space and compete and exist and finally have a validity and a density. So it's all an attempt to kind of just feel oneself and feel alive and feel one's own existence in this and one's own validity of being. Now that kind of aspiration, that kind of obsession, that kind of going for making it on its extreme ends up in suicide. And the reason is because a person is grabbing and taking and trying to take all of these external trappings and all of these things from the outside and stuff them up into him so that he becomes actually a stuffed doll instead of a hollow doll. But actually, they remain a doll. The entire context of shallowness, of hollowness, and then the filling up of hollowness with things from the outside implies that one is a doll or a dummy, doesn't have a beingness that actually fills them up intrinsically. So actually the entire aspiration and attempt to fill oneself up continues to feed and to vivify the context and the frame of reference that one is in fact hollow, hollow of essential meaning, hollow of essential value, hollow of divinity, hollow of essenceness. So it's great to stuff oneself up if one is actually a stuffed animal or stuffed doll. So that's why people can achieve so much. People can achieve wealth. We find this with actors or other popular people in pop culture and across the gamut. People can achieve fame, wealth, popularity, you name it, power, and then they commit suicide. Because they've stuffed themselves up all right with stuff, but even once a person stuffs themselves up completely with stuff, they're still left with the same frame of reference that they began with, that they're essentially hollow and require things from outside of them, external trappings, to stuff them up. That is fundamentally depressing. So once the chase and the preoccupation and the drive for stuffing oneself up begins to wane, because persons in fact filled up with stuff, they achieved the wealth, they achieved the fame, they achieved the goal. They now, after all of that, are left confronting the hollowness. Am I stuffed doll? Is that actually what I am? Well, that's not actually worth being around for. So that's one kind of making it. And it ends up in suicide, or it ends up in drug abuse, or it ends up in drinking lots of alcohol, or it ends up in all kinds of forms of escaping, of not being present, and of not being able to fully enjoy and absorb the simple things in life and even all of the things that they've amassed. On the other end of the spectrum, there's a different kind of making it. There's a kind of making it where a person says, I am full. I am full with love. I am filled up with the divine life force that is willing me into existence. I am full with talent. I am full with awareness. I am full with gifts. I am full with so much to pour into the world. The fact that I exist is a gift to the world. My awareness is a gift to others. My talents are a gift to others. My uniqueness is a gift to others. Sometimes even my possessions are a gift to others. I want to make it, meaning I want to make a massive impact. I want as much of me as possible to actually come through me and be dumped into the stream of consciousness that is life and be emptied out into the world, so that maybe I fulfill a purpose in advancing human consciousness, in advancing the world, and in having the world be a space that's a little bit more awakened, a little bit more aligned with itself. So that is an inside-out approach to making it. Making it in that context is a function of taking everything that I have and sharing it and unloading it or offloading it, so that the rest of the world and other people can grow from it, so that I become a scaffolding for others to climb on, to reach higher, to go deeper into who they are, to reveal something more true of who they are, and move the world in the direction of becoming more and more awake, more and more aligned with its divine nature. In that way of making it, I'm filled up already from the get-go. The entire premise is that I'm full. The entire premise is that I'm divine. The entire premise is that my very being is actually a reflection of essential being, is actually an expression of the is. There is no hollowness. There is nothing to fill up. I am filled upness. So there's joy from the get-go. And soon enough, even if I had ideas at the get-go, at the outset, of getting something in return, that stuff happens because when we give of ourselves fully and we use ourselves up, the world responds. People want to be around that. So we actually receive things in return. We receive love, we receive wealth, we receive whatever it is that we need and want from the universe back into our being. But it doesn't even matter anymore. It actually doesn't even matter that much to us because we're so full. And the more we give of ourselves, that's the difference between spirituality and materialism. In the material domain, the more you give away, the less you have. In the spiritual domain, in the domain of love, in the domain of wisdom, in the domain of divinity, in the domain of compassion, the more you give, the more of it you have. So those are the two kinds of make it. So if you have ideas about, I want to make it, I want to make it, I want to make it, I invite you to ask yourself the question, why? What is the context that precipitates this drive to make it? Am I in fact feeding a premise that I'm empty, that I'm lacking, that I need to stuff myself up, that my existence is lacking validity, and that something from the outside, some achievement, some accolade, some recognition, some material possession will compensate for that and fill up that gap? It's a very painful process to be inside of that galaxy, to be inside of that way of thinking, a way of constituting oneself. And it can be bitterly disappointing when you come to the end of the rope. So the invitation here is that I'm inviting you to consider flipping it. Consider switching out that context and saying, who am I? What would love to come through me into the world? What are my gifts? How am I holding back? Who am I saving myself for? Or when am I saving myself for? How is fear of not looking good holding me back from sharing of my gifts, from being fully self-expressed, from allowing the world to avail themselves of me fully? The more we use ourselves up, the more divinity fills up our being. What kind of making it are you after? I'm Fitz Rabin, Stomp Scribe, Soul Scribe. And if you'd like to be in a conversation with me to deepen this, take a look at how you can elevate from making it from the inside out, from the outside in, to a making it from the inside out. If you want to live creatively rather than reactively, if you want to go deeper into who you in fact are, I'd love to be in conversation with you. I love you.